read 16 books this month.
Damn!
And for me, that is a lot. I don't know. I was just in my reading bag this month. So for my stats, I read 15 in the romance, some sort of romance. And I also read 1 thriller. I read 5,111 pages total. 2 of the books were actual physical books. The other 14 were on my Kindle this month, which for me is shocking because I usually read a lot more of my physical TBR because I'm trying to get through it. But I guess I was feeling the Kindle this month. All of the books were fiction, and my average star rating was 3.68, which for me is really low. I usually rate a lot of things 4s. Those are my stats for the month. Let's get into the actual books that I read. The first book I read was The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. This book follows Anna and Liam. They have a marriage of convenience so that they can live in a apartment complex together. Because the apartment complex only allows families, so they make an arrangement to get married. They barely talk to each other, they barely interact, and then they sign divorce papers and go on their way. Liam never files them because he has to stay married for 5 years in order to come into an inheritance from his grandfather. So Liam is actually pretty wealthy, Anna is not, and Liam's sister is getting married, and he needs to convince them that he's actually married, because that is a stipulation in his inheritance, is that if they find out he's not, he will lose it all. So he has to go to his sister's wedding with his wife. So that's where he tells Anna, hey, we're not divorced yet. If you come with me, I'll give you some of the money. I just need you to convince my family that we're married and we're in love. So that's kind of how this plays off. The marriage is on some secret resort island, and you just follow them from there. I gave this book 4 stars. I thought this book was very cute. I laughed out loud plenty of times. I thought Anna was really refreshing, and I thought she wasn't written cheesily funny. It was actually funny, where I was like I could see myself being her friend. The reason why I didn't give it 5 stars, the family was a bit over the top. They were the part of the 1%, and I don't know anyone in the 1%, so maybe this is how they really act, but I just felt like a lot of it was just over dramatic. They didn't know each other at all, and then all of a sudden they're falling in love on this island, and they only were on the island for a week, so it felt really insta-lovey, and then the ending just felt rushed to me. It felt like the problem was brought up and then it was just brushed over and it was over with. It didn't feel like a third act breakup necessarily, but it was. Like, I don't know how to explain it. You would have to read it to like kind of get what I mean, but that's why I didn't give it 5 stars. It just felt a little over the top at sometimes, but I really had fun reading it and I really loved the main characters in this. Next is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I listened to this on audiobook and read along with my Kindle. This follows 2 sisters and they're living separate lives. They haven't talked in years. One is married to an affluent lawyer, I think is what he was, like an affluent businessman, and then the other one kind of has a harder time living paycheck to paycheck with daughter, and she's also like a recovering addict. So it follows the story of these 2 sisters who years ago their sister ended up missing and they never found her, and there's things that happen in their lives that bring them back together, and they're realizing that it's connected to their sister missing. And that's all I can really say without giving away too much. I gave this book 3.25 stars. I struggled with this book. The reason why I listened to it while I read it was because while I was reading it, I could not get into this book. I could not connect to the characters. I didn't care about the characters or the crime. I also figured out the plot twist pretty early on, and it took me out of the book a lot. I also only liked the older sister. She just was witty and kind of like dry humored and funny. It was hard to really root or like any of the characters in this book because they're just morally, none of them were good. So yeah, that's how I feel about that book. I feel bad for rating it so low. At the end of the day, I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would for it being a thriller. Next, I read Smut by Karina Hale. This book follows Amanda and Blake. They're 2 college students who want to be authors someday. They are taking a creative writing class, and they happen to be in the same creative writing class where they're paired up by their teacher to write a short story. And it turns out that they have a lot of chemistry while they're writing this short story, and they just formulate a plan to actually become published authors together while they actually work on their own works of their own. And they actually come together to write Smut, and it turns into a romance of the sorts with them working together. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I enjoyed this book. I liked the premise. I thought it was really cool seeing kind of like a look behind like the writing process with these two and like watching their relationship build. What didn't hit for me was the guy. He was very into himself, very conceited, very, oh, I can get any girl I want. I love a confident guy, but he was just to the point where it was nauseating, where he just kept talking about how hot he was, how he knows how women love him, like he can have any woman he wants, he sleeps around. I just didn't care for him, and it was hard for me to root for the couple when I didn't care for the guy. The girl was like, I really enjoyed her. She was funny. I think also for me where the book fell flat is the third act conflict was just borderline so immature and dumb. It didn't make sense. For what it was and the level of anger that it brought out, I didn't get it. But I did enjoy the side characters a lot. I did enjoy best friends and the family aspect of the book, and I did enjoy that. It was just sometimes the characters in the third act conflict, it just fell flat. Next, I read the Darkverse series by Runix. So first it starts with the Predator. So it follows, they're gangs. There's 2 gangs. There's the Tenebrae and they're rivals, and I can't think of their name right now, but there's Morena and there's Tristan. Tristan is in the Tenebrae, and then Morena is the daughter of the opposing gang. Tristan hates her. She doesn't know why or anything, and you learn that later, but he hates her. But there's a lot of things happening in the crime world where Tristan and Morena have to work together to figure out what is going on. And the first 2 books follow them, so it's the Predator and the Reaper. So the first 2 books kind of follows the story of them having to work together, and then obviously building a relationship and falling for each other within that. I loved them. I gave the first book 4.25 stars. I gave the second one 4.5 stars. I love Tristan and Morena. I just love their relationship. I thought it was so fun, and it was so unrealistic, to be honest with you. But I don't know what it was. It's something about like a dark romance where the guy just so possessive, even in their hatred. Which sounds crazy, but it worked. And I really did enjoy the relationship. Their banter was so great. For me, just so good. And I was constantly just wanting to pick it up and read it when I wasn't reading it. I just was thinking about it. And I still think about these characters like I know them. And I recommend this series. Highly, highly, highly recommend this series. The only reason I didn't get 5 stars, I love these characters and I loved how they came together and everything. But Tristan still was holding back a little bit by the end of the second one when it came to like the love thing, and it took me out of it a little bit because I understand he has to kind of work through those feelings and those emotions, and he's not used to them and everything, but like you want your guy to be head over heels, and he just didn't give that for me. So that was the only reason it didn't get 5 stars, but other than that, I loved them. Next in the series is The Emperor. The Emperor follows Tristan's best friend Dante. Dante is the son of the leader of the Tenebrae, and he is planned to take over once his dad steps down. It also follows Mara. Mara is the housekeeper's daughter who lives on the premises, and they have a forbidden friends to lovers relationship. I enjoyed this book. I thought it was really good. I liked watching their relationship blossom. I liked the flashbacks where you can kind of see their relationship start from nothing, where he didn't even know she existed, to him fully caring for her and falling in love with her. I loved it all. I rated this 4 stars. What didn't sell it for me was so it was forbidden obviously because he's going to be a high ranking member in this gang, and then she's a housekeeper, so they can't be together, and they kind of sneak around, so to speak. But my thing is you see them in the first and second book, and you see all this tension, you see all this angst. You think they hate each other. That's kind of how it comes off in the first and the second book. And then when you read the third one, none of that makes sense for those emotions with why they are the way they are. It doesn't fit why they were acting that way in the first and second book, when everything that's happening in the third book, when it preludes back to that, it didn't make sense. I also thought that things just started to pick up and get a little unrealistic for me with the series, and I understand that it's not real, and it's supposed to be dark romance, and it's supposed to be a little out there, but then sometimes I felt like things were just thrown to make you go, oh my gosh, and that's kind of why I rated it that. And then in the same series, I read The Finisher. Finisher follows Alpha, who is Dante's half-brother, and Zephyr, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, Zephyr, and they are also childhood friends to lovers, so to speak. I wouldn't say childhood, but I'd say friends to lovers. It follows these two where Alpha lives in a different area, and he's kind of the leader of his world, and Zephyr just also lives in that city. They used to date, but something happened to Alpha where he doesn't remember her. So Zephyr wants to get her inheritance, which is some heirlooms from her grandmother, and she needs to be married for that. So she's never stopped loving Alpha, so her way is to get him to marry her for convenience, and hopefully he'll fall in love with her again. And I thought it was good. It was my favorite one. I rated it 5 stars. I loved the banter. I loved the chemistry. I loved the girl was chasing the guy. Like, you don't see that all the time. I loved they just built it block by block, but then there was also still all of the action-packed stuff in there, and I felt like it was just cohesively everything fit. You got to see the other characters come and meet everybody. I loved it. That's all I can say. It was my favorite one so far in the series. The next book I read was The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. This book follows Lucy, and she is a teacher's aide, and she wants to adopt a little boy that she has grown really fond of that's in the foster care, and his name is Oliver. She has tried to adopt him before, but financially and living circumstances, she's not been able to. So Lucy and Christopher bond. He pretty much needs a miracle in order to adopt him, because Christopher and her bond over Jack Masterson, who is a children's author who wrote lots and lots of books about Clock Island. And he writes all these books about mysteries on the island and riddles and things like that, but he hasn't written in years. He finally wrote a book, and it's the only copy, and whoever wins gets that book. So then he makes a competition and invites Lucy and 3 other contestants, and this will give Lucy the money she needs to be able to adopt him and live her dreams out with Christopher as his mom. And I gave this book 4.25 stars. I loved this book. I thought it was really fun. I thought it was really cute. I loved the concept. I loved the characters. The island gave all the vibes. I loved the vibes of this book. I think reading it, especially in the fall, also helped too. The reason I didn't give it 5 stars was I felt that the mystery part, once they got to the island, was over like that. I wish there was more of it. I wish there was less of talking about Lucy and Christopher so much, and more about when she finally got to the island. The next book I read was God of Malice. I'm going to start this by saying, read this at your own risk. Definitely check the trigger warnings on this series. The opening scene alone just hit every single trigger warning ever. So just please do your research. This book starts by following Killian and Glendon. There's not much of a plot, so I don't really know what to say without giving away some things. But they meet each other. They have a very awkward isn't the word I want to use, but they have a very awkward meeting, and then finds out that they go to the same school, and he kind of is obsessed with her and kind of stalks her, and it goes from there. I gave this book 4 stars. All that to say, I enjoyed it. Once you suspend your belief and everything else, it again, at the end of the day, it is a book. It's not real. I enjoyed watching the characters' relationship turn into what it was, and I thought that was good. I did not give it 5 stars because I thought Killian at times was a little too much, and I thought the girl was a little too little. I thought she was very weak-minded sometimes and just let him do whatever. She didn't stand up for herself. She wasn't putting up much of a fight if she hated him as much as she said she did. And I feel like for what he did in their first encounter, she should have been a lot harsher with him than she was. I felt like she was just a doormat at that point. But I did enjoy the other aspects and the other side characters, and just kind of the craziness of their world was fun to read about. So that's what kind of saved it for me. But character-wise, they weren't my favorite. The next book I read was The Perfect Score by Kenna King. This follows Brent and Zoe. They're both in a wedding. It's Zoe's sister and Brent's best friend. They happen to both be single, and Zoe is just newly broke up with her fiance, and she wants to make him jealous. And Brent just wants to show his grandma that he's dating someone, and they strike up a deal where they'll fake date each other for the entirety of the wedding, and then they will go their separate ways. They also have a past history as well, so it's kind of supposed to be enemies to friends to lovers. So this book I rated 3 stars. So this is a shorter read. It's about 245 pages. I liked this book. I thought it was fun. I did not like the third act conflict. For me just was so quick, and I don't even feel like it was resolved. Like, not even resolved. I just felt like the third act breakup, since the book was shorter, it happened and it was over. There wasn't much to it. I also did not like the girl sometimes. I felt like she seemed a little desperate, and I understand she wanted to win back her ex, but he also was there with another girl that he left her for, and she was still pining to get his attention. So I didn't like that. I loved the guy. The guy was just, that's what saved the book for me, was the guy. He was just this big old teddy bear, and the side characters as well. A lot of these side characters are just saving ratings in a lot of these books this month for me. And I just really thought that the guy was amazing, and the chemistry with all the characters and the friends, I really loved that. But I just want a girl to be a badass, and I just felt like she was just not, obviously. Like, I just don't know where her self-worth was in this book. Next was another series I read. These books, if you're trying to knock some books off of your reading goal for this year, these books are super short and super fast, and I read each of them in a day, barely, and it was not even a day. And it's the Campus Tale series by QB Tyler. The first one is called First Semester. So it follows 2 people, and I cannot think of their name right now, but they meet on a dating app, and then they have a passionate wild night together, and then she goes to class, and the teacher walks in, and it happens to be the guy she had that night with. So it's kind of a forbidden, shouldn't be together, age gap romance. And all of these are age gap romances, by the way, in this series. So if that's not your thing, I don't know if this series will be for you. I rated this one 3 stars. I liked some of the romance, but I didn't care for anything else about it. I thought the third act breakup was stupid. It didn't work. I have no other way to put it. It just did not work for me. She was 19, he was 32, so the age gap also was kind of like, I didn't see it really honestly being a thing. And the third act conflict for me wasn't even a third act conflict. It was like stuff happened, and then it was just, okay, now it's better. And then I read the second in the series called Second Semester, and it's also a forbidden romance, and it follows the girl from the first, her sister, and her sister's dad's best friend. And she is an intern at his office, and things go from there, and they start a relationship. This age gap is also larger than the first one, and I gave this one 2.5 stars. I did not like the guy in this one. He was insufferable, and the girl wasn't that great either. He was so caveman, and I'm all about an over possessive MMC, but when he's like, you can't even go study with another guy, don't even go get coffee with any of your coworkers, that's controlling. That's not like steamy possessive. There was a third act conflict, sort of. Obviously, in any of these books when there is a romance that should not be happening, the people who shouldn't know find out. And I felt like that was just glossed over. Also, the third act was a mess. It wasn't even a conflict. It just, shit was happening that I don't even know how to explain. It just was like stuff was coming out of left field and then everything was fine. All this stuff blew up, then everything was fine. And I'm still sitting here trying to figure out what happened in that book. So I don't want to say I wouldn't recommend these. I just did not enjoy them for myself. Next, I read Holiday Hire by Maggie Cole. I started to get into my little Christmas bags, if so to speak. This book follows Alexander and Phoebe. Alexander works on a family ranch and they train race horses. And he also has two sons and he is a widower. His parents take it upon themselves to say, hey, you need help. You can't do this all by yourself. So they hire Phoebe as his nanny. And Phoebe is trying to get a sort of a break from her life in her current relationship, which is why she applies to this nanny job in the first place. The beginning of this book started off so flipping strong for me, and I was like, this is going to be a 4 to 5 star book. I loved it. Then it kept going, and I dropped this book down to 2.5 stars, and I so sad because it was so promising. But Phoebe, I don't know what the point of bringing her into this relationship while she's still in a relationship but not really in a relationship was, because it just caused so much conflict that was so unnecessary and felt so annoying. She felt really immature at times with things, and one minute she's all over him, then the next minute she's like, well, I don't know if I want this because obviously I don't know about the relationship at home. And then Alexander called his man parts the stallion, and I rode right out of that book because I was not feeling him. And he didn't just do it once where you're just like, oh, that's kind of funny. He did it multiple times. Almost every time they were intimate, referred to his lovely pieces as the stallion. Oh, I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it, okay? And then the ending just happened and then everything was fine. What? They didn't even really address it. Now I was just like, okay, what is even happening right now? So this book was not my favorite. It is also not the first in a series. It's the second. I think it's called the Cartwright family or the Cartwright whatever. That's what their names are. I don't know if I'm going to continue the series. I don't know if I'm going to pick up any of the other people because none of them even seemed that interesting to me to begin with. And I probably I'm gonna send my therapy bill, because if I even see the word stallion anymore, I think I might cry. Thank you. Next up was Merry Ever After by Tessa Bailey. This is in the Under the Mistletoe Christmas novella series that they have going out. This book follows Evie and Luke. Evie is a single mom working at a thrift store, and Luke is a farmer. And Luke is in the market for a pair of pants that fit because he is the gentle giant. And so he comes to the store every day looking for pants and they don't fit. And then Evie wound up making him a pair of pants and the relationship blossoms from there. I think this book was about 50 something pages. So the story is super quick, super fast, easy read. Obviously there's going to be the insta-love effect aspect because of how short it is. And I didn't mind it. I didn't rate this one. I don't know what to rate this one because I don't even know how I feel about this book. I liked it and I didn't. And I don't know what that means. The guy was a bit much sometimes for me. He said, like, he would say things and I would just be like, outwardly cringe, but then I thought other moments were so sweet and wholesome. I made a comment at one point where he was like, I can't find pants that fit me or women that fit me either. And I think that's where I audibly at, because I was, what are we even talking? Like I couldn't get with it. I don't think this one will ever get rated because I don't even know what to say about it. Next was If This Was a Movie by Morgan Elizabeth. This is the second book in the Evergreen Park series. This book follows Jules and Nate. They met a year previous at a bar on New Year's Eve. They spent a couple nights together in Nate's home and really thought their relationship was going to go somewhere, and then something happens and they kind of don't talk for a year. Jules has a dance studio that floods and she's standing outside waiting to kind of get like what's going on, and Nate takes his daughter to see Santa and she wishes for a woman that reminds her of the doll. They run into Jules. It's pretty much a lovers to enemies to friends to lovers again book. I rated this one 3.5 stars. I liked the book. I liked the vibes. I loved the Christmas story. I loved the idea of the meeting before and then not talking and then meeting again. What I didn't like was Jules, unfortunately. What caused her not to talk to him anymore was valid, sort of. But then when she realized that she was incorrect and that it was wrong or whatever, she still used it as an excuse to guard her heart, so to speak, and she didn't want to get hurt and things like that. So then it's just Nate trying to win her over the entire book, and they would get somewhere and then all of a sudden they're back to ground zero because she doesn't want to try anymore. She's too scared. And then she'll kiss him and then all of a sudden she's too scared and she doesn't want to take it any farther. And it was just frustrating to keep reading it for what she was mad about. It just felt like it was just trying to keep the book going. So that's why they were having issues, was just to make a chapter pretty much. I loved Nate. I thought Nate was amazing. I thought he was so funny. His meddling family was so cute and funny. I thought that was really sweet. Jules is really into romance movies, so he would take little scenes from different movies and try to reenact them to try to get her to fall back in love with him. His daughter, on the other hand, though, that was the most maturest 5-year-old I've ever read about. She was so mature and was saying things no 5-year-old says, and she was not... She felt like a teenager. She didn't feel like a 5-year-old. I really did like the book and the atmosphere and the spirit and the Christmas wish and all of that. I thought that was really sweet and I would recommend it. I wasn't particularly in love with the characters. Next is Cruel Winter with You by Ali Hazelwood. This is in the Under the Mistletoe novella collection. This book follows Mark and Jamie, and they are childhood frenemies to lovers, and she goes to his house to borrow a pot. The snowstorm gets really bad, they're stuck in the house, and then they kind of work out what happened with them and then obviously fall back in love with each other through the process. It's about 70 pages. It was a really quick read. It was really fast. It was fun. I loved this one. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was so fun. I liked the 2 characters. I thought they were mature and they were fleshed out well. Ali did a really good job of making you kind of connect with them right away when you read this book or novella. I felt that they were real people that I could know or be friends with. I liked the story. I liked that when they kind of would show the past, it didn't focus on it so heavily, but you did get the sneak peeks that you needed to figure out where they are now and why they aren't talking or have been avoiding each other. There wasn't really a third act conflict, but there was already a conflict that was why they weren't talking. I really liked that. The only reason I rated it 4 stars and not 5, the author brought up a lot of inconsistencies with the main female character and her father, and they kept kind of bringing up how like the dad wasn't that great. It was never fixed. It was just kind of brushed over, and I either wish that wasn't brought up or something more was done. But I do understand it's a novella. It's only 70 something pages. You can't do everything in it, but it just felt like it was brought up enough that something should have been done and it wasn't. So those are all the books I read. I did have one soft DNF, and it was The Annihilator, which is the 5th book in the Dark Verse series by Runix. I am struggling with that one. I just don't like the characters in that one right now, and I don't know if I ever will. I do want to finish it so I can get to the last one, but I had to put it down and give it a break. The way that I loved the other characters, I wasn't anywhere near able to have that same emotion with these ones. That was my November wrap up. Hope you guys enjoyed and got some reading ideas for yourself. I will be doing Bookmas this year, but I am going to be doing it from the 12th to the 24th. I plan on doing giveaways during that as well because I love giving back during the Christmas season. I hope you guys will come back and watch my Bookmas. I hope I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked and want to subscribe. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye!